Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to this after church tea time. We're very happy to be here with you. I'm Noreen and I'm accompanied today by Lisi and Sandra. And we're going to talk about today's service on the topic of listening, how to truly build relationships. I don't remember what was after listening, but yeah, it was about listening and relationships. And it was a really good sermon by Laurentiu and Alexandra, and a really good service. And I want to preface this by saying that it's really timely and truly important as we are going deeper into our unions and our relationships with each other and the relationships between nations in the world. Like this could definitely be applied to everyone and every types of conflicts. So yeah, I really want to thank them for doing this sermon. And yeah, let's begin this discussion. How do you guys feel about the service?
Okay. There was so much in that service that that came up and that I'm going deeper on, and I took some notes. The first thing that I received from it was that it's what Granville actually pointed out in the introduction, that most people listen in order to respond and not actually to understand. And I realized, like, oh, I have a tendency or had a tendency to do that. I've worked through a lot of it. Still, parts of it are there, and it really took me deeper into just pausing and reflecting and just receiving what has been shared to me, either by the person communicating with me, or by feedback that I'm receiving from my life, from the world. So that was my first takeaway.
Listening is very important because that's how you learn about yourself, but you're also learning about what this person in front of you needs, and they're conveying to you or talking to you or explaining to you what's going on with them, what they're going through. And you need to sit still and be present and listen to them and be compassionate, and don't overanalyze or overthink too much what your head is saying. Listen to what the person is saying to you.
Yeah, I do agree. And I think Granville's introduction was perfect as well, because he very much said from the beginning, like, I wanted to sit and listen, really be present with it, and it was the perfect practice to actually listening. And I feel in our relationships, we could benefit from just being present for the sake of being present, not just for talking afterwards, but truly being there, sitting with ourselves and being present with ourselves and the other person. And I feel like listening takes on such a meaningful depth from the moment we do that. And I do think that so many misunderstandings could be avoided by it, because you're also taking the time, and in that space, I do think time is compassion to to feel what the other person is truly communicating to you. Yeah. How do you guys feel about that as well?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I got that too from the sermon where, um, like what you just said, like feeling what the other person is communicating to you. And Lorenzo and Alexandra highlighted that, like when they spoke of listening to the other person's energy, like maybe they're complaining, um, but if you feel deeper into their purpose of communication, and that requires you to be present with yourself, um, you may come to a deeper understanding that they're just kind of trying to work things out or work through something or just getting clear about something. And so a lot of times, they also mention like not listening to each other creates war in a relationship. And I think a lot of times, like when we listen in order to respond, we miss the connection, and that kind of creates these like missteps and um, conflict. But then we can work through it.
Yeah, I do feel like, oh, sorry, Sandra. I I loved what Alexandra shared about her experience because it links perfectly to her famous like step 0 of a mirror exercise, you know? And it's about like really feeling into the situation and really feeling the core. And I loved Laurentia's image there of like, do you want to just cut the branch or do you want to go to the core of the thing? And yeah, it's perfectly complementary to what Jeff and Shaleia teach about like it's safe to have arguments, you know, maybe have the other person express like how they truly feel. Like there's an order of things and there's a time for that, for just expressing, you know, and sitting into these feelings and then healing them. And so I felt it was a perfect reminder that, you know, it can look messy, but it was actually a language of listening for them at that stage was actually a language of love, you know. And I thought it was really cool.
Some people, they might be very hurt or upset or angry, and they're very emotional, and it's really hard to speak to them. So what you can do is just hold space and just feel the feelings and feel what's going on, what's the energy behind it, and just hold space for that person with love. And then at a better time, try to resolve it in the most loving and compassionate way. But arguing sometimes is not the solution. It's just you want to resolve this nicely and peacefully.
Yeah, because that creates safety. Just listening without judgment, it creates safety in the relationship. And so often, um, like we're taught to jump in and fix it or jump in and, like make it something instead of just listening. And as you were speaking, I realized that like when I'm listening to someone in a conversation or even to myself, it's not actually passive at all. It's the active listening is really um, connected to the other person, and part of active listening is being able to like respond in a way where the other person knows that they're heard and knows that they're seen, and it just requires presence.
Yeah, I agree with you, Sandra. You're right. And I feel, yeah, listening is not passive at all. And actually listening enables you to build the appropriate response afterwards. And the appropriate response can vary from person to person or from different situations. And sometimes it's just like letting that person express themselves. Sometimes it's gently guiding them. Sometimes it might be arguing. But yeah, you won't know what to know at first if you don't have the compassion to listen to them and also listen to yourself. Like, am I ready or in shape to give that person the response that they need, or do I need to communicate that maybe this is not the right time, or I'm not able to do that at first, or there's a lot of like in listening, it's not at all passive because there's a lot of like love to give and receive for yourself as well. Um, and yeah, I know it's like, Lisa, you touched on this, but I know it's like quite the opposite of what we're experiencing in the world today, how we were taught. I think we were like always taught to be like quick-witted or be fast, like always be in a debate or a dialogue, or maybe we were taught to be right, and to fight for being right. And this being an active listener and choosing that is very much like, about slowing down in a way, and about seeing your world and your relationships and your experiences as different than what you were taught.
Yeah, and that really speaks to what Lorenzo and Alexandra shared about committing to being, a good listener or listening in general, committing to it, like not just one or two times, but like this is the way it is, like this is God's way. And I chose that too as I was listening to them. I was like, I really feel like in my union, like I um, didn't really listen to Josh, my twin flame. And um, when he would communicate, I was always trying to find the rebuttal, or to nitpick at the places where what he said was incorrect. Like, are you sure about that? And wait a minute, that's not right. It just really, what's the word I want to use? I noticed that I was like, um, just being nitpicky, or trying to cause contention. Contentious, I think, is the right word. And I was like, gosh, I wasn't even just really listening to him. Obviously, he's my twin flame, so that's like where, I was also treating myself that way. And so, as I've been healing this, and with Lorenzo and Alexandra's sermon, it just came at the perfect time, because recently I just started to just kind of listen with intention of understanding, rather than as a like we're playing tennis here, and I gotta get, I gotta win. But that's not really what it's about. And I've noticed that now that this has come to light in the sermon, like I'm committing to making a more dedicated effort to just listen. And I really feel that the reason that I want to do that is because I want to connect with love. I don't want to be, an adversary to myself or to others. And that feels really good to me. And it just the sermon couldn't have come at a better time.
People appreciate it when you like just sit back and you just love them and don't argue with them. They just love it that you just love them. And you just show them compassion. And if they're mouthy and they just want to talk a lot, they might calm down and start listening too.
Yeah, I love your point of view, Sandra. It's so like it's so wise, and it's like, oh, it's just what it is. Like humans are as simple as that. It's true sometimes, and I totally agree with Lizzie. I'm guilty of that too. With my twin flame, I often find that I want to nitpick. I don't know why. Like last month, it suddenly became a habit of mine. Like not even like expressing it to him, but like just like I was judging like every little thing. And I didn't know why. And I know he hates that. And I was like, okay, do I want to be nitpicky? Like, is this actually like loving to our relationship? Is this necessary? Do I want to be listening to him? Do I want him to express things? And I don't know why I thought like, but ego is irrational. So I guess that's where it comes from. But I thought at some point that maybe I wouldn't have a say or a place in our relationship if I did not express these things. But like in listening, I find that people are able to self-regulate on their own. And yeah, it's just a response to the love that you showed to them. You were there and you did your inner work, and you're like, what is this showing to me? Is this annoying me? Like, do I need to do a mirror exercise before I say anything to anyone? And I find that the love is reciprocated like right away. And that's the beauty of a relationship. So yeah, I don't know why like there's this habit with twin flames of like always being like on every details. I don't know why, but it's funny. But I think we're all like learning to heal that. It's funny, but it can become annoying like very fast, is what I'm saying.
The nitpicking back and forth is just something in your consciousness that you're not happy with, and your twin flame is sharing that to you, or reflecting that to you. So it's somewhere you have to love yourself and clear that.
Exactly, for sure. Exactly. It's always like perfect love. It's always a mirror. And I also have to sit with myself and say like, all right, would I appreciate that someone is nitpicking all around me like all day? And I had to be honest, and I was like, no, definitely not. I hate that. I'm independent. I want to, make mistakes, learn, like self-regulate as all people. So I stopped doing that. And yeah, I also listen to myself in doing that. So yeah, hooray. Hooray for love.
I wanted to talk about like something that you had said, Sandra, a little bit ago about holding space for someone, and just to share on my personal experience. Like I heard people say that, but I didn't know how to do it. And when I was practicing holding space, I would just kind of do the nodding thing, and not say anything. And the person who is communicating with me just kind of was like, "Are you there?" Like, "Hello, I'm talking to you," and I'm like, I'm listening, you know. And it was like, no, 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 like holding space for me. What I learned was that it was more like just letting go of inhibition and just choosing to listen and then responding as yourself, in a way that, when someone, like I'll give an example. uh, Jeff and Shaleia are like master listeners. They listen to all of their students and they communicate the listening through their responses that are like, I had never been so seen and heard, not even by myself, as I had, when I was a live student in Jeff and Shaleia's class, and even when they were communicating with other students, I was just, like blown away, like wow, like, um, I had never experienced that kind of love before and attention. And that showed me where I wasn't giving it within. And so I set about practicing that. Um, but it just, to go back to what I was sharing, I'm also really learning about like what it means to hold space for someone and listen actively without, going into like what you were saying, Yoreen, and like nitpicking and feeling like you're at odds in the dialogue.
I was also in Jeff and Shalea's live class, and they listened to me. I can't explain this. It's mirroring or the energy going back and forth. They're sensitive and they're listening to me and they know how I'm feeling it. I don't even have to say a word. They know how I'm feeling. And so, in the terms of holding space for someone and listening, I look at the world like this: we're one great big cosmos, God, and God's talking to you. The universe is talking to you. It doesn't matter if it comes from Jeff or Shaleia or anyone else. Holding space and listen to what God's telling you and what you need to hear. It works both ways.
I love what you both said, and it just, yeah, I was exactly thinking that it's listening is learning our oneness, basically. And yeah, we're learning to be one. Like we're learning that we're never separated. And so there's no difference between like listening to ourselves and listening to others. And I feel that's why definitely at our masters at that, because they know like they respond to themselves like exactly how they respond to other people, like, because it's the same love, like it's the same energy given to all, like even in our inner work. And I find this is beautiful, and it's really a big realization that, you got to treat yourself and other people just the same, and it's unconditional love and nothing else. I think it's pretty big, and I think that's why listening is so important. It's not so much a peace offering to other people or other nations. It's more about like vibing up in love, like showing the love, feeling it, and healing as well. And yeah. Oh, Sandra, you wanted to say something?
This is a big world out here, and not everybody feels love or knows love or is as connected to God as we are. But just be present and be love.
Mm-hmm.
Show
Sure.
by example, not so much all the time what you say, but what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. How we live as well. And I think like 2 days ago, Shaleia was sharing a quote. I don't remember if it's Yogananda. If anyone remembers, like correct me. But it was like, you cannot like expect peace in the world if you're not changing towards peace in yourself. I think that was it. It's kind of paraphrasing, but that was the message. And so what Sandra was saying is exactly that. It's, you show people how to be peaceful just by being and just by healing. And that's why our work is so important, because no matter how small we think this will have an impact on people. And I'm sure it has an impact on people listening, on the energy of consciousness. And this is a big step, and I think many of us healed quite a lot, like listening to this sermon.
I'm curious if anyone wants to share anything about an experience you may have had where you didn't feel listened to, and then what you did. Because I really enjoyed or got a lot from when Alexandra was sharing, what she did when she didn't feel listened to and she went to God and her relationship with God. But I'm curious about everyone's experience.
I can't remember specifically any specific incident. I just remember this, that I'm a very sensitive person. I felt not being listened to in different times in my life. And I just have to solve it myself by connecting to God. And God will listen to me. If no one else will listen to me, God listens to me. And I just talk to God and try to work it out that way. But overall, after I've gone through people not listening to me, I'm learning to communicate more and better with myself, and expect more and better communication from others as well. But I can't remember specifically a specific incident to tell you.
I think one experience where I was not listened to that was big for me is in the middle of my studies. I was in a very elite class of people, very political world, where I guess Black women were some kind of a new thing inside a promotion of like predominantly white students. And I wasn't really listened to a lot, except for things that seemed to pertain to my class or my origins. And I mean, it really like deteriorated the relationships until I cut out most of these people from my life, and I had to change studies, but it was for the better. And I really felt alone at that moment in time. But over the next few months and years, I realized that I got everything that I dreamed of. And it was because I had prayed a lot. And so I realized exactly what Alexandra had realized, is that God is a person, and he listened, and he gave me what I wanted, what I desired. And also I could pray to him, and I could also talk to him. And that is always there. Like, it's my best friend. And I was not ever alone, because what I wished for in these periods of time came true afterwards. So there was someone to listen, and that was good. What about you, Lucy?
Well, I just want to say thank you for sharing that story, and I really sympathize and just am glad that you shared, moving from that experience of really not being listened to and really trusting God to work out of it. And for me, I think for like the majority of my childhood, I always felt misunderstood, and I developed a lot of anger and resentment because I didn't really care what was communicated in response to what I shared. I just felt really bad that I wasn't understood. And for a long time, I wanted other people to understand me. And I didn't learn how to understand myself, or to give whatever attention or validation I was seeking outside of me to myself, until the mirror exercise. That said, like what you experienced, Doreen, when you realized that people weren't respecting or listening to you or loving you, you started to have boundaries there and remove certain people from your life that really didn't honor you like that. Because listening is part of respect and honoring someone. And so I started to have boundaries as well, where I was like, this person is not making an effort. And it wasn't just like, run of the mill, like Joe Schmo is not making an effort to listen. It was people that wanted or seemed to be in a relationship with me that was growing, that just, weren't listening. And as I went deeper into love within myself, especially with the mirror exercise, then I started to draw closer to people who were listening. And I find that the Church of Union are such people, and everyone's listening all the time in the church. Like, we all see each other, we all hear each other. It's a very alive community and present community, and that's why I'm really glad to be here. But yeah, in terms of resolving, to answer my own question, I guess it started with acknowledging why I was upset, and that there was an upset, and that then attempting to resolve it on the exterior through peace, when the other what do you call it, interlocutor, the person who's listening, didn't seem to listen or didn't want to hear what I wanted to share, and wasn't receiving the value I was giving, or vice versa, perhaps. Then those relationships shifted, and new relationships were planted, and new opportunities, actually, like in the places where I wasn't actually being a good listener, I was given by God more opportunities to be a good listener, and I've been humbled many times, and all the better for it.
I have been loving myself so much thanks to our community that we're in. And I used to be like a pushover. People would just walk all over me and take from me, or just walk all over me. Since being in this community, I've developed my boundaries. I've developed my self-respect. I've developed just loving myself and remembering I need to love me. If I want other people to love me, I have to love me. But I really didn't have that great boundaries until I came into this community. I feel great.
I find that the beautiful thing with love is that as we create these boundaries, we don't become tough or closed off from being traumatized by these people. We learn and we heal, and we're even more open to love and to listening to others. We're more open than ever. And I find that really beautiful. And I think I can relate to Lacey and her childhood because I think I wasn't really listened to as well because I was a kind of a different kid. I had different interests. My parents didn't always know what to do with me. And I find that I wanted to make these peace offerings of behaving a certain way so that people could love me or listen to me more, which did not work, admittedly. And that's why I think we're hearing so much about childhood when we come into contact with this work. And yeah, I guess it's also all part of listening because we cut out listening to ourselves because we felt that being loved required changing, being different from our divine selves, different from what God truly desired from us. And yeah, it's all part of listening. And I want to share that for some people, this habit of people pleasing can develop into oversharing. And Lawrence, you and Alexandra touched on that. And yeah, I do think it's clear in that context that oversharing was developed because they weren't listened to. And in turn, they're not listening to themselves and they're not listening to the people that they're talking to. And so, yeah, it's very much an inner process to come back to yourself and know that God is your primary source, your interlocutor, I guess. So, yeah.
Our community emphasizes that we get our good from God and that we go inside ourselves and love ourselves, to do it inside ourselves instead of outside of ourselves. That's what our community emphasizes. And it's really wholesome and healing.
Yeah, for sure. It's inside first and then outside.
I want to just kind of touch on what you shared, Doreen, like where one of your insights was that, when people overshare, they have been hurt by not being listened to. And I really relate to that because, and I don't know, maybe I still do it, but I think I've healed a little, but I relate to that. I know that the reason why I would overshare is because I had this idea that I wasn't being listened to, so I had to meticulously spell it all out and let this point and this point and over here because I imagined that the other person couldn't understand me. And that was where I was really disconnected. And I also didn't see my brother as just being right there with me, like, hello, I get you, because we're all children of God. So yeah, I really relate to that. So thanks for sharing that.
I've also overshared and overgiven. So I've learned to just listen to myself pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah, and I think listening could also be about feeling the room. It's like a balance between being listened to, like sharing yourself, being yourself, and also being sensitive to the receiver, I guess. And it's funny because with my family and my best friend, sometimes we joke about we have joke about this, and I say like we should have checkpoints, like okay, checkpoints. Am I oversharing? Like, do you understand what I've said in a very short sentence, or should I go into more detail? And oftentimes I find that the people that are there with me, I have relationships with at the present, are very understanding and emotionally they're there, like they're at the same stage of life as me. We're feeling the same things. It's the beauty of like attracting people that you know are like you, are healing things like you, even though it may present in a different way. And so yeah, there's no need for oversharing, because like being children of God, like being human, being one, means that we have a terrain for understanding each other, especially when you're friends with a person. So yeah, oversharing doesn't really make sense. Like, and because it's not like sometimes you overshare, but you don't even realize it. But then you can feel this energy of unease, and you can adjust and you can align better. And then yeah, I think it's beautiful. It's also learning to be a good listener to yourself and others as well, because you attune as you go. Yeah. And yeah, I want to go into this point of like communicating with God and listening to God, and God listening to us, because God is infinitely patient, so He'll definitely listen if we overshare, and He'll share like some good things with us if we're ready to listen to Him too. And as Yogananda says, it's not like easy because God is shy, but just the fact of desiring that relationship, that intimate relationship, that daily communication makes it easier, like day by day. Yeah, so what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like this topic. When you shared that, I remembered Alexandra saying like through Jeff and Shalea's teachings that God is a person. And like I started to think like, oh, I never asked God like, how are you? The way I would ask like a friend. I don't know what, I just was like, oh, God's fine. I never thought about like connecting and be like, how are you doing? And I did in that moment watching the sermon. I was like, God, how are you doing? And he's like, I'm doing great. I'm making all these things and it's really fun. Thanks for asking. And I just felt this like, I'm getting emotional because I felt this answer come to my heart like, you finally asked me all this time and you never asked how I was doing. Not that God would ever be doing poorly. I don't imagine God would respond like, I'm not doing so good. Like, I don't think, because I think sometimes when I do want to know, I don't just say that. How are you doing? Fine. I want to know if you're not fine, like if we're friends, but I don't know why I just never wanted to connect with God that way. It was such a powerful insight that was shared, and to really listen to God. Actually, just a real time example is a moment ago when you were sharing, Yoreen, I felt that familiar urge to like jump in and, and here's what I think, that sort of thing. And I was like, no, what Yoreen shared was like, it was complete. There's no need to like add anything to it. I was like, thanks, God, because I chose to be an active listener even here. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I have not thought of God as a person. I always think of God as like the whole universe, but that is right. Think of him as a person. And one reason they emphasize for us to feel our feelings is so God can feel you and you can feel God. It goes back and forth so God knows how you're doing.
Yeah, it's just thinking about like, feeling. I feel I should say that yeah, listening to yourself can be so simple, such a simple act, but it can have such big repercussions in you and around you. And yeah, to speak a little bit about the state of the world right now, I think that most of the conflict can amount to a pile of misunderstandings, I guess. Misunderstandings with yourself and misunderstandings with your brother, and not listening to yourself enough. And so if everyone is taught that such a simple act as listening can do wonders for you and for world peace, I think the world could start to tilt on its axis like tomorrow, because it's such a big revelation. But all in good times, like I think it starts with us, and it's gonna spread to our brothers and sisters in time. Yeah, what do you think about that? How do you see conflict now that we've seen, like, we resonated about like this topic more on the inner, more on ourselves, and how do you feel about conflict worldwide now that you know this type of communication?
That's a very powerful question. Um, when Alexandra shared not listening to one another causes a war in the relationship. And that's why I believe, Jeff and Shaleia came for many reasons, but one of the reasons that they came and shared their teaching is because of like twin flames being the bedrock and the foundation of the society. Like that's the foundational unit. And if you have disharmony there, then it spreads throughout the world. It's like, the microcosm is the macrocosm. And with regard to what's going on in the world, I think about like countries as like macrocosms of individuals. And so when a country is like, I don't feel like I have enough, I'm going to go grab this other country over here. Individual people do that too. It's the same consciousness on a macro scale. And if I were to be with a friend who may have an issue and start expressing greed, being an ascension coach, I know, okay, let's work through that feeling. Let me when you're an ascension coach, like that is pretty much you're listening to the other person and walking them through their feelings and helping them listen to themselves and bring love there. And as we begin to get better at our personal relationship with ourselves and God and with others, we can see exactly how larger entities like groups and societies can heal, and what the way to heal would be. Okay, if this individual felt like they didn't have enough and had to take from their neighbor, well, let me talk to you. How are you really feeling? Why do you feel like you need to take from your neighbor? You don't feel like you're enough. Well, let me show you a new way, and let me hear why you don't feel like you're enough. And so like everything that we're experiencing in the world can be healed with this work when you really go down to it. um and I'm sure there's like some modifications when the collective entities are looked at and worked through. But yeah, this, I mean, it starts with the foundation and with the unit that, like, from twin flames to individuals and in the ascension process. Yeah, I think, like, that's my piece, and I'm sure, what do you all both feel that this connects in the world?
I agree with you, Lizzie. It starts with us. We have to resolve the conflict in ourselves, and we got to love ourselves. And your twin flame and you are working together to bring love out. And then it goes up other steps, like you get twin flames, you get a neighborhood, you get a town, you get a city, you get a state or a province, you get a country. You just keep broadening it, broaden love, just keep doing it, don't stop. Personally, if I was greedy and I wanted to take something from somebody or another, I have to what's the word I'm trying to, go to God and get the solution through God, that God would present to me whatever it is that I need, rather than me running off to go get something from somebody else. And that's what countries need to think of. Rather than going to get something from another country, we can resolve this. Just tell us what you need, and let's see if we can, come to some agreement where you can get what you need to the country who wants whatever it is.
So funny, because we're at the intersection, I feel, of like part 3 of our new discussion, Seeking Harmony, and what we're gonna talk about next week about harmonizing relationships. And I so love what you said, Sandra, about like a country. Like, it's as simple as saying, like, tell us what you need and how can we help you? Maybe how can we guide you to see your richness and your resources within? Like, it's yeah, it's so powerful to see that as well. And what I felt when I was listening to Lucy is that, and I felt like in the past few weeks of us amounting to this discussion of seeking harmony, is that I feel so much more compassion for countries as a macrocosm, because I see how they would behave as individual, and I'll see like all the individuals inside that create the big consciousness. And that's our brothers and sisters. And we got to listen to them too. And see what they're showing us, what they're mirroring, where they need help. So yeah, it feels like just realizing that and seeing the state of the world as like big individuals interacting with each other, it feels so much more peaceful already than, you know, cold geopolitics and mechanisms and just silence. It's all human first. Great. So how are you both feeling about this? I think we are coming to the end of the discussion. Would you like to add anything or talk about anything else?
It was great. It was really great. We got into it.
Yeah, I feel complete here, and I'm energized about the upcoming dialogue in the Unionism Spiritual Discussion Group. So I can't wait to see what comes up there.
For sure. All right. Well, thank you both for this after church tea time, and thank you to everyone who watched us and participated in the chat, and thank you to anyone who's seeing this from YouTube. If you like this discussion, don't forget to like and subscribe to our Church of Union YouTube channel to, you know when we update services and tea times and other discussions such as Seeking Harmony, and talk about these juicy topics. So yeah, thank you everyone, and have a good rest of your Sunday, and namaste.